hierarchy of urban settlement actually refers to the place that any town have in a urban system. For example, you can understand like the in any urban system, the different town has a different place in terms of their hierarchy. Like for example, tehsil place is at a lower hierarchy compared to the district place, or district place is at a lower hierarchy compared to the capital city of a particular state. So that's why the hierarchy this is actually can be understood with respect to the type of function that any town actually play in the whole urban system. This hierarchy has been defined by different geographer in a different manner. Like for example, Christaller, according to the Christaller central place theory, the mm, the the lower in any urban system, the higher the hierarchy any town have, the higher will be the number of activities concentrated in this town, and the lower the hierarchy, the lower will be the activities concentrated in this town. So that's how actually this hierarchy has been defined by the Christaller. According to the primate city concept, in any urban system, the highest there is a one uh, large city, and rest of the city is disproportionately smaller compared to the largest city in any country. So this city is called as primate city because it is a disproportionately large compared to the other towns that this country have. The rank size rule has defined this hierarchy in a different manner. According to the rank size rule, the the second largest country in any urban system has the population of the has a half uh, population of the largest city in any country. Like for example, if the largest city has a 1 crore population, then the second largest city will be having a 50 lakh population, and the third largest city will be having a one third population of the largest city. So it may be having something around 33 lakhs of population. 33 lakh population. So this is how exactly he has defined. Crystal center place theory is also deterministic in nature. Deterministic in the sense that based upon the certain assumption, the outcome is inevitable. So, like any other model in geography, which are the product of the quantity revolution, this model also is based upon the assumption. So, what are these assumptions? The first assumption is there is an isotropic plane. Means plane is homogeneous in terms of the soil, climate, and everything. So this is the isotropic plane. There is a ease of transport in all the direction. There is no physical barrier or any kind of obstruction for the transport. The people living in this area have the same income, and demand is also present everywhere. So this is another assumption. The transportation cost is directly proportional to the distance. The more distance you travel, the more transportation cost you will have to pay. Then consumer are economic man in the sense that they want to maximize the profit. So that's why they want to travel to the nearest closest place to buy anything in order to actually in order to save the transportation cost that they have to incur. Then so these are the main assumption. Now the theory, the main principle of the theory, actually this whole theory is based upon the range of good and the threshold of the population. So what exactly is this threshold? Threshold actually basically refers to the number of population, number of people required for any shop to sustain. Like for example, if a barber shop can sustain only if it has a threshold of population, at least some amount, some number of population which will be sufficient enough for this shop to pay the rent, pay the actually labor that may be working in this shop. So if this shop has to sustain at least the minimum number of people is required, this is called as threshold of the barber shop. In the same manner, if you have to suppose if you have the showroom of BMW, then you require more number of people to sustain this shop compared to the number of people that is required for sustaining a barber shop. So that's why BMW showroom will have a mm, bigger threshold of population compared to the barber shop. Then the range of good actually refers to the amount of distance that any consumer is willing to travel to buy something. For example, if you have to buy the bread, then you may not be willing to travel around 10 kilometers to buy the bread, because of the fact that you will always try to buy the bread from the closest place. So, because if you have to travel the 10 kilometer to just buy the bread, then the amount of money that you have to pay for the transport will be much more higher than the price of the bread. So that's why you will always tend to buy the bread from the closest place. But it is possible that for buying the BMW, you may travel to the Delhi, you may travel to the 600 kilometers also to buy the BMW. So that's why BMW has a more range of food compared to the bread. So now actually Kristaller says that because these smaller these shopkeepers, they are rational, they want to maximize their profit, so that's why they will try to actually have a they will try to get themselves located from other same type of shops as far as possible, so that they can actually command over the largest market. So they will get themselves located at a at a uh, at a maximum distance, so that they can command the largest market. For example, these are they will try to get themselves located as far as possible from the same shop uh, you know in this area. But that's how they will try to get it themselves located, but still some area will remain unserved. That's why they will come close to each other, and that's how the pattern, this pattern, the shape of their market will become hexagonal. So these are the same order center. For example, they may be buying, selling the grocery or bread. So that's how the area will become what is hexagonal. Market area will become hexagonal. Now, actually, Kristaller has given this K3 principle, because he says that these you will have a then you will have a these are the lower order center, then you will have the higher order center which will be serving one third of these smaller area plus themselves. So that's why the higher order center will serve the one third of the six smaller lower order center plus himself. So that's how in total he will serve the three market area three market area he will serve, and that's how the another lower order center will also serve another higher order center. Then this order center will also serve actually one third of the lower order center plus themselves. So that's why this hierarchy can be explained with the help of K3 principle. When in any area, if the transportation is more important, then hierarchy can be defined with the help of K4 principle. Because in this case, because all these center, all these cities lower order center will get themselves located on the roads radiating from the higher order center. That's why these same order center, this one and this one, they will serve how much one six half of the six smaller center and one itself. So half into 6 plus 1 itself. So this is a 3 plus 1. So this kind of hierarchy can be explained with the help of K4 principle. And wherever the administration function is more important, then this large the higher order center will serve the 6 lower order center and 1 itself. So that is can be explained with the help of K7 principle, because in case of administration, this administration cannot be divided, so jurisdiction cannot be divided. So that's why this hierarchy can be explained with the help of K7 principle. If the administration is a criteria, then the hierarchy can be explained with the help of K7 principle. Now this theory has a lot of problems. For example, this theory talks about the fact that human being will always visit its closest place in order to save the transportation cost. But you may have seen that the human behavior cannot be predicted with so much amount of certainty as these models try to predict, because even in present time also you may have realized that people visit far away places in any mall to buy even bread. So you cannot say that the bread has to be bought from the closest place. These days people are also traveling long distance to buy even the bread and butter also from the malls. So that's why this behavior of human being cannot be predicted with so much amount of certainty. Now, because of the planning of the government, also this model may get distorted, because government may try to actually relocate some of the services from the big cities to the lower order center, for decongesting higher order centers. So that's why these whatever this model says that lower order centers are having the activity of only lower order center, because this theory says that lower order center has a only because they have a less amount of range of goods. That's why the activity located in the city will be of only lower order center, and intermediate town center is performing is all those activity which are already concentrated in the lower order center plus some other extra activity. In the same manner, the higher order center also may be having all the activities located in the lower order center or and middle order center, but at the same time they may also be having more activities which are not concentrated even in a intermediate town. So these kind of things can be distorted by the government planning, because the government may shift lot of activities from the urban, from the high order center to the intermediate order center in order to decongest these cities. So this is another problem with respect with this model. Then research also has shown that settlements are not as equally spaced as this theory have talked about, because this theory says that the same orders, the distance between the same order center is equal. This hexagonal pattern of the market is also very theoretical, because there are a lot of other factors which determine how much area that any center will command. Then lower order center also have this has also been found that lower order center also have some activities which are supposed to have been established in the higher order center. And as far as size of because this theory also says that the size of the equal size of the center having a same hierarchy should be the same, but in reality it has been found when the size was plotted for the bus centers, then it was found that despite the fact that these all the bus center has a same hierarchy in the urban system, but the size of these bus center was different from each other. So that is another problem. So that's what the Kristara Center Press theory. Now the primate city, as we discussed, that the primate city also define the hierarchy in an urban system, saying that in any urban system there will be one disproportionately large city compared to the other city in the urban system. So this city will be called as a primate city. Now, what are the reasons why exactly any city can become a primate city? Because whenever in any city some economic activity get concentrated, then lot of intellectual people from all across the country also start migrating to this city, and finally politician also comes to the city, and the city becomes disproportionately larger compared to the other town in that particular country. So what are the reason that this is a private city? Dual economy also can lead to the formation of private city. Dual economy means because in the some city you may have observed that you have a urban you have a one very posh market like Connaught Place, and you have some other market which caters to the demand of the poor people living in the city. So when these dual type of economy, when they come together, that can lead to the formation of big primate city in any country. Then colonial history, because in those places which has been the colony of foreign powers, these foreign powers have tried to develop only one big cities because this is where they used to live. Simple economy also can be responsible for the formation of the one largest disproportionate city, because if the economy is more diversified, then many country can become a large many city can become a large city in any urban system. But because if the economy is simple, it is based upon only one product or one activities, then also it can lead to the formation of private city. The small size of the country also sometimes give rise to the one private city, because the all the uh, need of this country can be fulfilled by only one country. So these are the factors that actually is responsible for the private city formation. Now deviation, when there are a lot of deviation has been found in the this private city concept. How this what are the deviation? If suppose the second city has a less than half of the population of first city, then primacy is intense. So this deviation actually, if in any urban system, if in any country, if the second largest city has a less population of half of the first largest city, then the primacy is intense. It means that the second largest city is not is disproportionately smaller compared to the first largest city. But if the second second largest city has a more population than the half of the first population of the half of the largest city in any country, then the primacy is a weak. So, and when the primacy is a weak, then it will lead to the multiple primacy, because a lot of other cities also will be close to become a private city. This this can take place because of many factors, like for example unification of many countries. Uh, so if suppose if the 3-4 countries get unified, then before the unification every country may be having one private city, but after the unification of these 3-4 countries, these all the 3-4 cities in will be almost of equal size. So that's why this can lead to the multiple primacy. Long history of urbanization also can lead to the multiple primacy, because like for example in India, um, if the history of urbanization is very long, then it will give rise to many cities in different areas. Then you have a different nationality. Sometime different nationality also can give rise to the multiple primacy, because like for example in Canada you have a Quebec and Toronto. Quebec is generally inhabited by the French. So whenever the two different group of people live in different places, that can give rise to the two big largest cities, so that lead to the multiple primacy. Different language also, because Generally, people speaking different language tend to get themselves concentrated in a different city because they feel more close to the those people actually is speaking the same language. So this can also give rise to the multiple primacy, and large size of the country. Large size of the country also give rise to the multiple primacy because of that fact that people cannot move a long to a long distance for their needs to only just one primary city. That's why the large size will always lead to the formation of other big cities. So, what are the applicability in India? Whether this concept of the primate city is how far it is applicable in India? So, if you see the national level, you have a multiple primacy because in India you have a Bombay, Calcutta, Chennai, and Delhi. These all the countries are almost equal in their size. So that's why at the national level we have a uh, multiple primacy. So why this multiple primacy has developed in India? Because of the distant decay. Because these countries, all the four cities are far from each other. So that's why every area has a these all the cities are fulfilling the need of their hinterland. So this is distant decay principle. Then you have a multiple language and regional consciousness because in these cities different languages are spoken. So that's why because of regional consciousness there also has led to the give rise to these four different countries. Large size of the country, definitely India's size is very large. These all the city was developed by uh, uh, Britishers. So these are the some factor why exactly this in India though you will find the multiple primacy at a national level, but state level pattern you will see the primacy is in the West Bengal because there is a huge difference between Asansol, the second largest city of the state, and the Kolkata. Then Maharashtra also you have a primacy because Pune is disproportionately smaller compared to the Mumbai. Karnataka also you will find the primacy because here also Mysore is disproportionately smaller compared to the Bangalore. Andhra Pradesh also there is a huge difference between Hyderabad and Vizag, the second largest city in the state. In Bihar also huge difference is found between Patna and Gaya, and in Rajasthan also you have a Jaipur and Jodhpur which are very different in terms of the number of population that these countries have, these cities have. So in these states you will find the primacy, but in Jharkhand and Punjab you will not find any primacy because Ranchi and Jamshedpur are almost equal in terms of their population. And in Punjab also Ludhiana and Amritsar is also having the same number of population. So that's why in these states you don't have a primacy. Now we will talk about the rank size rule. The rank size rule was given by the Mark Jefferson. As we discussed, this concept says that the second largest city in any urban system will have half of the population of the first largest city, and third largest city will be having must be having one third population of the first largest city. So this is how exactly he has explained. Now rank size rule. Why actually this kind of rank size rule can develop? There are two reasons why this kind of hierarchy can get developed in any countries. Unification, basically first rule says that unification leads to one big country and diversification leads to the small cities. So this means that if the two different economy come together, that will lead to the formation of one large country, and if the diversification of the economy will lead to the small small cities. Minimizing cost, the second principle is minimizing cost lead to the small cities. Maximizing efficiency lead to the big city. Because in smaller city, people generally there's a less concentration of people in the small city because they want to minimize the cost, because in the cost is very minimized, can be minimized in the smaller city. You may have observed even in India also, the rent, the money that you have to pay for your food, everything is less in a smaller town compared to the town like Mumbai or Delhi metropolitan city, where the cost minimization is not the main goal. Here the maximizing efficiency is most important, because everything is concentrated there in these towns. That's why the efficiency can be maximized. So this maximization of efficiency always lead to the big city, whereas the minimizing the cost lead to the formation of smaller towns. So that's how the rank size rule can get developed. The deviation from this rule is what? The deviation means this rule says that the second largest city in an ecosystem system must be having half of the population of the one largest city. So if all those factors which has been responsible for the primacy will be the responsible for the deviation in the what rank size rule. Why? Because if the second largest city have a less than, as we have talked about, like if the second largest city has a less population than half of the population of the first largest city, then primacy is intense. So it means if the primacy exists, then rank size will not exist. So that is the reason why all the factor that has been responsible for primacy will be the same factor will be responsible for the deviation from the rank size rule. So there are two types of deviation: primary deviation. What exactly this primary deviation is? Second is less than half of the first city. If the second largest city is having a less population than the population of the, if the second largest city has a less population than the uh, half population of the largest city, then it is a primary deviation, because it will lead to the primacy. Then what are the factor? The same factor that was responsible for the primacy. Like small size of the country will lead to the primacy. Dual economy will lead to the one big city, one formation of one big city. Colonial past, because in the colony that generally foreigners try to develop only one city where they used to live. Then if the economy is export oriented, then some the port town may become a primate city. Then simple economy, because if the economy is not diversified, then only one city will be sufficient enough to fill the need of the country. So this is the primary deviation. Binary deviation is opposite of the primary deviation. Binary, if the second city second largest city has a more than half of the first city. So if the second largest city has a more population than the half population of the first city, it means it will lead to the multiple primacy. So you will realize that all the factor that was responsible for the multiple primacy will be the factor responsible for the binary deviation. So what are the factor for multiple primacy? We already discussed the different nationality, old urbanization history, long history of urbanization, the large size of the city, unification of many country and different language. These were the same factor which we discussed earlier, and the same factor was responsible for the multiple primacy. So the same factor will also be responsible for the binary deviation in the rank size rule. Then there is a third type of deviation that is called as a step type of deviation. Step type of deviation means that in any urban area, in urban any country, in or in if suppose you can understand this with the help of example of US, because the in a US, in every corner, every quadrant of US, you will find that if you divide US into four different quadrants, then every quadrant you will find 2-3 city of the same size. So this is a step deviation. This is called as why exactly, what are the factor this has been which has been responsible for this type of deviation. This is because of the large size of the country like US. All the area have a 3 city of the same size. So now here also we will see means whether this primate rank size rule is applicable in India or not. At the national level, no rank size rule because there is a multiple primacy. We have already discussed, like at the national level you have Calcutta, Mumbai, Delhi and Chennai. So you have multiple primacy, it means at the national level you don't have a rank size rule. At the state level, with in all those states where there is no primacy like Punjab, Haryana and Kerala, in this state you have a rank size rule exists. So this is what exactly the hierarchy of urban settlement.